and the partner orientation, which is one of the program requirements. So I'm recording this session. We are going to do a little bit of housekeeping. So you've joined using GoToWebinar. You have a couple options for hearing the presentation. You can dial in by phone, in which case you would want to enter an audio PIN, or you can use your computer's microphone and speakers. Everyone's going to be muted, and you can type your questions into the question bar. We will likely probably only be taking questions through that question bar, but we also, there's a chance we might unmute some folks if you raise your hand. And with that, we'll move forward. So today we're going to talk about the 2018 program launch. We'll quickly go through some eligibility requirements in the program. We'll talk about being a partner in the program, go over some modeling and assessment guidelines, quickly review combustion safety questions, talk about some training that we'll be having next year, and some new program opportunities. And I know most of you are really excited about what the changes are, so I'm going to highlight them briefly here, and then as we go, we'll get into these in more depth. So while the basic incentives are going to be the same this year, we'll have a few bonuses and a few upcoming penalties for projects, aiming to help push projects along. We have some big announcements with deadlines. We are no longer going to have an end of year deadline, but deadlines will be tied to individual projects. So that's really great news, and we'll talk about that. We'll also have incentive bonuses for cold water savings, and we'll talk about streamlining the partner qualification process to make it just a little bit easier. This year, we are going to be moving over to the non-residential performance module of Energy Pro version 7. So we'll talk about that transition, and we'll talk about having easier access to other programs. So a couple of disclaimers here. One is that, this program is funded by utility ratepayers, and PG&E runs it under the auspices of the California Public Utilities Commission. And like most of these utility incentive programs, the funding's limited, and it's subject to change or be terminated at any time. A couple other quick notes. Attendance in this webinar doesn't guarantee participation in the multifamily upgrade program, nor does it guarantee that you'll get to work on a participating project. Also, it's not the role of the program, PG&E, or TRC to handle, execute, or sign contracts between partners and owners. So that work is up to you. And with that, let's kind of jump right in. So we are open for business. We are accepting new applications and new projects to the program, and you can submit today. And first, we're going to kind of go through some of the eligibility requirements and things that have changed and things that haven't. And one thing that hasn't changed are the basic eligibility requirements. So this program is available to all PG&E multifamily customers, and we still have the requirement that you need to reach 10% energy savings based on a model, modeled energy savings. These requirements also haven't changed, so we're looking at projects with 5 or more units. This is a program for existing buildings, and we accept all market levels, high-rise and low-rise projects, and the program is driven primarily by you, the partner raters and contractors in the program. You guys are the ones bringing in projects to this program. Likewise, our focus on comprehensive measures hasn't changed, so we are still aiming for completing measures in at least 2 of these 4 broad categories, which are the building envelope, lighting and appliances, heating and cooling equipment, and domestic hot water. And also, the upgrade incentives have not changed since last year. So they still start at $400 per unit. They ramp up slowly at first, and then at 19% energy savings, they ramp up more aggressively with higher energy savings to the point where for each additional percent energy saved, you get another $75 per unit. We cap out incentives at $3,000 for 50% energy savings for really deep retrofits. And likewise, the basic assessment incentives haven't changed. So there's you have a minimum of $2,500 for an assessment incentive, and for projects with more than 25 buildings, the assessment incentive is $100 per unit. And if you have a project that saves 25% energy or more, there's an extra $25 bonus for the assessment incentive. So now we're going to talk about a few changes. One of them is a change that we're making to spur projects to start the process and join MUP. And this change works like this. So after we conduct a pre-qualification call with a project, if that customer hires a rater and signs the application within 14 days of that pre-qualification meeting, we will commit to paying the assessment incentive early. We'll pay it at the time of incentive reservation. So, normally our process is that we pay the assessment incentive at the very end of the project when everything is complete. But under this case, we can pay it early for projects that aggressively jump into the program and meet requirements. So another change that we made was based on your feedback, and that is we are getting rid of the assessment caps for projects that have 100% combustion safety test out. So no longer are you limited to an assessment incentive for the first 200 units, but from now on, if you are doing combustion safety testing in every unit, you can get an assessment incentive for that unit. And finally, I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but this is a big one. We have removed the end of year deadline. And this is something that we've been working on a long time, and we're quite happy to allow projects to have a realistic timeline. And this is how it's going to work. So the incentive is going to be reserved, and your deadline is going to be tied to, will be unique for each project based on the scope of work and the timeline. And so this isn't to say that you want to, have all your projects finish out in 2019 or 2020. Really, you still have a big incentive to complete this year, because funding in the coming years is always subject to change. Incentives are always subject to change, but we're aiming to kind of get away from this, end of year crunch that most of you are probably still experiencing. And here are the details. So at the beginning, before we reserve incentives for a given project, we'll have a kickoff meeting with you, the raters, and the contractor and the building owners and us to work out a timeline. And we'll work with you to figure out what a realistic timeline is. It'll be based on the average timeline of a project in MUP, and then we'll kind of go from there and make some edits. And so there's a stick here too. So if a project misses its deadline, there's going to be an incentive penalty on the project, and those details we're still working out. And I think I'm going to let Mike jump in to see if he has any additional comments. Mike, are you on the line?
Hey, yes. Hi, this is Mike Maroney, program manager here for the program, and I just wanted to comment on this deadline issue. So I want to be transparent. You guys are all partners. The programs, some of you may have heard, the programs are transitioning to a third-party, more of a third-party model from utilities in 2018 and 2019. What that means is that the utilities like PG&E are not going to run these programs as much in-house anymore. So this program is third-party because we, TRC, are running it. There is a process in place where another implementer can run this program in 2019 and beyond. What we're trying to do with these deadlines is to make you, the partners, have more control over how this program can grow and succeed. So these deadlines being tied to actual project details is a mechanism that we are offering, we've proposed to PG&E, and we're offering to you as a way to, as Matt Jones was saying, get out of this end of year crunch. But it also, I want to make sure that you're aware that the projects that we complete, that you all complete in 2018, will inform and affect the incentive budget available for this program in 2019, and frankly, whether or not the program has any other policy or programmatic changes at that time. So we're going to implement these deadline changes so that there's no longer a November 27, in this year, November 13th, 2017, all projects are due. But that means that we need to work with you on making realistic deadlines for all of these projects. So we don't want to get into a situation where projects are set to complete in 25 months. That's not realistic. What these deadlines are meant to do is to give you all the flexibility to have projects complete after the arbitrary November 2017 deadline, and not have this, this program is stopping, this program is starting scenario. So we're willing to work with you on projects with a deadline, depending on the project schedule, but we are going to ask and try to work with you and work with the project teams to get as many projects completed in 2018 as we can. And that's in order to help us and help you and help the program continue to serve the market in the best way possible in 2019. So I just wanted to be clear that the deadlines are meant to be a benefit to the projects, but the program needs to be able to report more accurately on when projects are going to complete. So we need to work with you on accurate deadlines, and we also need to work with you on making sure that 2018 is a success so that 2019 can also be a success. And also just a quick note here, TRC is going to run this program in 2018, and the program will be open for bid and for a new implementer to take over potentially in 2019. And we're also prepared for and planning for that. So projects that we're working with this year we will make sure that the files and the process is made available in the event that the implementation changes between 2018 and 2019. So just wanted to make sure that we're all clear, and I'm happy to get into details on any of that stuff with any of you or on this call. But I wanted to really hammer home the point that 2018 success will inform 2019. So it's important for us to work with you on getting projects done in 2018, but also understand that this deadline flexibility is a way for us in hearing feedback from all of you, all of our partners, all of you, that projects don't fit into perfect little calendar year scheduling. So we're trying to accommodate that, and we'd appreciate your feedback, or if you have any questions, please feel free to let us know.
Great, thanks, Mike. So we talked about deadlines. Let's talk about some other bonuses. So a new thing we're doing this year are water performance incentives. So we are now offering incentives for saving cold water as opposed to hot water. And we can do that because there's embedded energy costs involved in transporting water, in treating water, and moving it around from site to site. And so we can actually claim some energy savings when we reduce the water that we're moving around and the energy use associated with it. So new this year is a special kind of bonus where if you choose any 3 of these items, shower heads, aerators, toilets, those are really common already, but also potentially turf replacement or irrigation controllers or installed rain barrels, we will give a project a 1% bump in their site savings percentage. And that essentially means that if your modeled building is at 10% and you do 3 of these measures, we'll give you a credit for 11% savings, and that means a bump of $25 per unit in the incentive amount. And if you're kind of in the upper tiers of the incentives, say you're at 20%, then doing these measures would give you a $75 per unit boost. So this is a new thing. TRC is also working, starting conversations with water districts to see if there's potential to kind of help piggyback these incentives on incentives they might already have. So this could be a really, I'm pretty excited about this. I think this is a move in the right direction, and it allows us to start taking credit for some of the work that we know has been, we know should get done already, but we're not always capturing. So with that, I want to check in and see if we have any questions from the audience. Give the opportunity for folks to ask some questions.
Nothing's come in yet, Matt.
Okay, cool. So type your questions in and we'll catch you on the next go round. So now we'll go through the process. This process, it looks very similar to last year. So we have the same program process. It starts by a pre-qualification call with the project where TRC and the owner, and if you are associated with that project, you will be on a call and we'll talk about the potential upgrades and see if the project is a good fit for the multifamily upgrade program. If it's a good fit, we will encourage that project to apply. As I mentioned, we'll have some incentives in the form of early assessment payments if a project completes the application in a timely manner. And once that project submits an application, that's when the assessment process happens. That's when The rater goes out and performs a site inspection and combustion safety testing and compiles testing documents for us to do a desktop review on. Once that desktop review is complete, we will reserve incentives. As we mentioned earlier, it's at the incentive reservation stage where we will figure out what the project timeline is and when projects should be completing their work and verification. And once incentives are reserved, construction happens, and when construction is complete, raters go back out on site to do test out, and they submit the verification package, which, most of you are still in the throes of verification review as we speak, on the way to incentive payments. And just like last year, we're going to have 3 mandatory check-in meetings. We're staging this first check-in meeting as a kickoff to the project. So we want, in each of these meetings, we want the owner, the rater, the contractor, and someone from the MUP staff to attend to, identify the opportunities, figure out the specifications, nail down the timeline, and make sure that we're on track. And kind of staying on track and staying on spec is what the 2 mid-construction check-in meetings are all about. And, these are kind of minimums. So if you have a project that you think needs a little more assistance, we're always willing to, have a quick call or check in with the project. All right, and now, so we'll talk about how you can participate. And before I jump into here, I'll check in to see what kinds of questions we might have.
Hey, Matt, it looks like we have one question that has come in. Let me just read that to you. Is there a calculator for the water performance incentive?
It's under development, and it will be available in early January. So if you have any projects in between now and then, we can work with you in between. Before we have that calculator fully released in January, we can figure things out and adjust your incentives accordingly.
And next question, is there a percentage in which the rater incentive at test-in will be paid? I believe that the question is basically what percentage of the incentive will be paid at test-in?
Oh, gotcha. Mike, you should take that one.
Sure. So we are working on the details of some of the policies that we're talking to you about here. So you're getting kind of a peek behind the curtain. We will have the details worked out by January 2nd, and we'll communicate with all the partners and customers, property owners as is relevant to the particular policy change. It'll be something less than or equal to 50% of the incentive that we're offering, and we're just working out the final details of how that's all going to work, and we'll have an update for you by January 2nd.
Okay, cool, thanks. So, why do you want to participate? So, this program helps you get some additional work. And we do that by, one, once you're an approved partner, you get listed on our program website. Additionally, this year we started, if we had interested customers that hadn't gone through and chosen a rater on their own, we've been sending out emails to our group of partners to see who is interested, and then in those cases we can give you the customer's contact information, and it makes it a little easier for the customer and a little bit easier for you too. So those are a couple things that we do to help you get work. But we also have some trainings. We'll be talking about a training that we'll hold in the beginning of January, pretty soon. And we also offer technical assistance, so modeling guidance. We can help with scope development and things like that. And finally, you get a marketing toolkit that's customized for you, and it includes a button for your website and some marketing language and a flyer that looks like this. And so the way you become a partner, one of the steps is to attend this orientation. So you're doing that. And another thing is to make sure that you have the right certifications, licenses, and insurance. And this applies to you, but also to any subcontractors that you hire if you're a contractor. And another important thing that I just want to point out is we do have a policy that requires that you have a background check policy in place and that you adhere to it throughout the time that you are a partner in our program. So it's really important. If you don't have this policy, you risk losing eligibility to participate. And all these details are in the partner agreements. So you should read those. And in that partner agreement, the next step is to read it, sign it, and then follow it. And those documents will be available very soon, and you'll find them on our website or the partner portal. So we did make a few changes, and it's mostly a process change that should make the qualification a little bit easier. Sometimes the qualification side of things can take longer than you would expect, and we're trying to make that faster. And the way we're going to do it is when you're trying to figure this stuff out, all you need to do is tell us who your insurance carrier is, give us their contact info, and we can take it away. We'll work with the insurance company to make sure that the right language is in place and the details are all right. And we found that when we work directly with the insurance companies, it just makes it easier for you and makes the process go a bit faster. All right. Any new questions, Mike? I'm thinking, looks like we might not have anything.
Nope, nothing new's come in.
Okay. So now let's talk. We'll talk briefly about some modeling and assessment details. Most of this is going to be review for everyone. So at the beginning of the process, what you do is we'll talk about the test-in package. So all of these things are pretty familiar to you, and we'll have a couple minor changes. But one of those changes is that we are asking for W-9s, which we use to issue the incentive checks, and also a copy of a utility bill. We're asking that for those items at the front end of the process. We use these to help process incentives at the end of the job, but it's easier to get that up front than at the end. When you're going out in the field, you'll want to sample units based on HERC protocols in our handbook. And most of you are familiar with that, but we'll have an example a little bit later. And I want to remind everyone not to forget about Energy Star. We have minimum performance standards that apply to certain equipment. And those pieces of equipment include water heaters, HVAC systems, refrigerators, clothes washers, and dishwashers. So if there's an Energy Star specification for your particular piece of equipment, then you need to follow Energy Star specs. We've got a couple new requirements for testing this year. One is a lighting schedule, and another is meter ID. So here's an example of a lighting schedule. So what we want to see in here is what the fixture type is, what location it's serving, and information about quantities and wattages. Additionally, an important requirement that we're asking for this year are meter IDs. So this could be either a takeoff, like a list of meters at the property, or it could be you could take photos, clear photos that show the meter ID. But we want this for every unit this year. And now we're going to talk about the really big change that we're making this year. We are transitioning to complete energy models under Energy Pro version 7 using the non-residential performance module. And the reason we're doing this is because we got feedback from regulators that the non-residential performance module is the preferred modeling platform. The change to Energy Pro version 7 we're making because we expect to be able to complete assessment reviews faster using this software version. And there's some important dates to remember here. So until the end of March, we will accept Energy Pro 5 models, residential module models, and we're offering to do the conversions to non-residential performance for you. So an important thing to remember is that the incentives are always going to be based on Energy Pro 7 non-residential performance. But we'll do that. We'll make that transition for you. After March, it'll be your responsibility to submit models in the non-residential module of version 7. And we'll be having some trainings in early 2018 that go over best practices when using non-res performance, and also some trainings on how to convert your existing models. I want to remind everyone that you can claim savings on a limited number of measures that can't be modeled but have approved work papers. And those measures include low flow fixtures like aerators and shower heads. In that case, you're claiming hot water savings, clothes washers, and on-demand recirculation controls. All of those measures have a work paper that's approved for use in our program, and we can send you that work paper or a calculator to help you claim savings on those measures. So now I'm going to transition to go over test out really quickly. We mentioned before that the deadline for your project is going to be based on the incentive reservation letter that will work with you and the project team to determine what that deadline is. And the documents include all of the items on the right-hand side there. So new models and Econ 2s if there are changes, cut sheets, permits, photos, invoices, lighting schedules for any changes that happened, and combustion safety test out results. One change with the verification letter is that next year we want materials and labor to be separate items, separate line items. So we want to know how much it costs to do the installation and how much the materials cost to purchase. So that's something that you'll have to make sure this will be something we can bring up at our check-in meetings, but the contractors are going to have to provide this documentation for projects this year. All right. Any questions?
Yes, there are. When will the handbook be available?
The handbook will be available on our website at the end of this week.
So let's call it December 4th. So it's Monday. We'll get it uploaded. We'll try and get it uploaded Friday, but technical difficulties, you should be able to access it on Monday, the 4th. Will someone with TRC still be meeting the rater on site during the test out verification stage?
Yet we're still looking at least a sample of projects during verification. And there's also a likelihood that some projects will be selected to have a site visit during the assessment itself.
Great, yep, so nothing's changing there. It's just a sample of projects that we'll be visiting. Okay, next question is, non-res software does not model LRR. I assume that's low-rise residential. Energy Pro is based on CBEC res and non-res versions. Can you use those?
We haven't talked, we talked a little bit about that, and
yeah, it's good
Mike,
feedback.
what do you think?
Yeah, so Energy Pro is basically a graphic user interface for CBEC res and non-res in the current version. The advantage that you have with Energy Pro is that you can do parametric analysis, basically. That's basically what non-res performance offers you, is a way of saying, here's my base case and here's my proposed case. If you want to send us CBEC res models, we can accommodate that and talk with you about the ways in which that we would adapt and adjust those models to document energy savings. I haven't taken the time yet, but I will take that on to investigate whether or not there are any distinctions or differences if you were to, for example, build a base case and a proposed case model in CBEC, whether or not that would be very different from Energy Pro. That's on our plate, but we haven't gotten there yet. As for the non-res performance doesn't model low-rise residential, this is a philosophical argument in some ways. As Matt mentioned, we've been pushed into this choice. We do not necessarily agree or we haven't seen enough evidence that non-residential performance is more accurate for modeling and for documenting the performance of an energy efficiency scope of work. But we're being recommended to move this direction. This also does, though, open some opportunities for us. There's an ability for us to do, for example, as you mentioned, interact with CBEC res and non-res more directly and stay up to date with the current standards of energy simulation in the state of California. I do just want to say, though, that we do not disagree with your first contention there, that the non-res software does not model low-rise residential. There are some adjustments that we make to the model, and details about that are forthcoming about how to model these projects correctly and appropriately, how to model a low-rise residential project in this application. So stay tuned for the CBEC, whether or not CBEC res and non-res are useful proxies. We'll get you some feedback on that. And yeah, I think that's the end of that question. Matt, do you have anything that you want to add there?
Nope, that was good.
Okay. The next question, more of a statement. CBEC does not model appliances well. Lighting is not a performance option. I mean, I think just to continue the last kind of conversation, we're investigating the change in this software, what this is going to mean for projects, and we will share those findings and results. We understand that there are limitations with, basically any simulation tool. And we have heard that, for example, CBEC doesn't model appliances and lighting the same as older versions of Energy Pro, for example, as a comparison. We plan to document those and wherever we can sort of mitigate against those issues. Outdoor lighting is not performance-based. I don't know if you want to clarify what that statement is about. We can get into the details on that. Happy to dig in a little bit more on that. Another question for you, Matt. The meter ID question, the meter ID pictures. Is this a new requirement of the program?
Yep, that's new.
Okay. Next question is: will the handbook be available to all potential partners, not just qualified partners?
Yeah, I believe it's on our public website. Is that right, Mike?
Yeah, it's available. The current version is available anyway. The new version will be uploaded and also available. That's multifamilyupgrade.com. Next question is the background policy check for our employees, subcontractors, or both?
I don't know the answer to that question. It's going to be for your employees, and you need to make sure that your subs either they should have a similar setup in place. So
that's my understanding too. That's right. Yeah. So we're going to check that your employees have passed the background check. You are responsible for checking whether or not the subcontractors qualify. So that's a liability or a burden that you take on as having those subcontractors. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. That's just like with certifications and things like that. If you have a subcontractor on the job, they need to meet all the certification and license requirements as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay, next question is about the costs. Are materials at the price we are delivering to client or our purchase price? So the material, I guess, just clarify materials costs, Matt.
Materials costs are the costs that you are supplying to the client. So if you are the contractor, we will ask you to break down your bill for the client between materials and labor. I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, there's a quick follow-up with our overhead. The question here, let me put it a different way. We need to show that the materials and labor costs paid by the customer do not, that the incentive does not exceed those costs. So this is the dollar value that the customer, the property owner, property manager pays you, the energy consultant, or the partner rater or the partner contractor. So this is the an invoice of the work that you performed, whatever yes, include your overhead and profit. Those are the price that you're asking the customer to pay you is the dollar value that we're documenting here.
Yeah,
do you have any clarifications? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think there's one other distinction or one other reason that we're asking for this, and that's because when these programs get evaluated, one of the criteria that they're evaluated on is cost effectiveness overall. So that's why we're trying to get a full accounting of the total costs. And I suppose this line of questioning is making me think that maybe it could be an extra burden, and maybe it would be really simple for a contractor to simply say, here's the quote for the materials I got for the windows, and then here's the rest of my costs for that project. And that is acceptable. So if you end up sending us, okay, here's the Home Depot quote I got, and then here are all the other costs that went into installing that equipment, that's okay with us.
Okay, next question. There are other software interfaces available for non-res. Can they be used? I can take this, Matt, or unless you have an answer. Do you want to take that on?
No, go for it.
So the approved non-res softwares are CBEC-COM, IESVE, and Energy Pro non-res. If you want to use IESVE, what we're going to do with that model is convert it to a CBEC-COM model, and then make sure that it's consistent with our modeling approach of all other projects in Energy Pro non-res. So there's to the earlier question before, the underlying calculation methodology among all of the softwares is consistent, is CBEC-COM, but we will be moving and migrating and documenting the energy results and calculating incentives based on the findings that we get from Energy Pro version 7 non-residential performance. Those results should be consistent, but I cannot guarantee that that's the case for all potential projects. So kind of a yes but answer there. And happy to get into the weeds on that a little bit more, but I think the takeaway here is we're going to do all of our work in Energy Pro non-residential performance. So to be consistent, would probably be appropriate that that you use the same software in order to communicate with customers. We're happy to talk with you more offline about that. Yeah, just a clarification or another question came in, Matt. You'd said quote just a minute ago on the materials and the labor. What we need are actual invoices. So these are paid invoices, not the preliminary quote, but what was the final number paid for labor? What was the final number paid for materials? One sort of comment. Energy Pro sucks, and one of our audience members doesn't like it and doesn't want to support it. I'm not saying that you have to. I'm telling you that that's the software that the program is going to use to document energy savings and incentive estimates. CBEC-COM is another choice. But we're going to convert those models into Energy Pro and do the parametric analysis for the base case and proposed case that way. So that's fine, but just be aware that that's how we're doing our business. So if there's any discrepancies or differences between those two approaches, that might create miscommunications down the road. But we're also happy to work with you on making that right. So. I can understand personal preferences, and we can try and work with you as best we as whatever options we have there to make that work.
Okay.
And I think that's all the questions, Matt.
Right on. All right. So now we will talk about combustion safety. We're going to kind of cruise through this, and just remember the details are in the partner handbook. Please notify us 5 days in advance of testing. That's so that we have some time if we choose that project as one of the site visit projects that we can get ready. And we talked about sampling requirements. There's the sample table on the right-hand side of your screen. You need to test a sample of central equipment. The more the better with the central stuff. And a sample of the units based on the HERC protocols. And you need to be testing units that have planned pressure dynamics changes. So, looking at if you're going to do window replacements or upgrading the system, those are times when you should be making sure you do test-in combustion safety testing. These requirements haven't changed from last year. Likewise, last year we moved over to following ANSI BPI standard 1200. Again, take a look at the standard, take a look at the handbook, but a couple key things to remember is that you test spillage under worst case conditions, and if it fails under worst case, it fails. You don't bring it out of worst case and retest. It's just a failure. Likewise, these CO thresholds in that table, if you exceed those thresholds, that's a failure. And give us a ring if you have any questions or clarifications or if anything's unclear. And a quick overview. So what tests do you need to do? So if you have an atmospheric draft appliance that's inside a dwelling unit, you're doing all the combustion safety tests. So the two I just spoke of, spillage and CO, but also gas leak testing, combustion ventilation air, all the standard combustion safety tests. If you have a sealed combustion appliance that is both sealed combustion and is actually taking its ventilation air from outdoors, then you're looking at gas line testing. And if you have a atmospheric draft unit that is outside the pressure boundary of the unit, then you need to perform gas line testing and combustion ventilation air. And, I think it goes without saying, but I'll say it, you should always be doing a visual inspection of these units according to the sampling protocols and looking for issues with venting and electrical problems and things like that. All this we're aiming to inform the owner as best we can of potential issues coming down the road. I also want to remind everyone that the PG&E's gas services representatives have stricter standards than standard 1200 in many cases. So here are CO thresholds. They're quite a bit lower. What threshold you're looking at depends on your spillage test. Likewise, during visual inspection, these items, these problems are things that would trigger you to give the GSR a call and give them a heads up. And if anyone has any questions on what any of those things are, I'm happy to talk about that. Likewise, there are ambient in the air carbon monoxide levels that are pretty aggressive and would warrant, if you come across them, would warrant a call to the GSR. So now let's talk about test out real quick. This should be fresh in your mind because you just finished it. A lot of you did. If you have new equipment, it's 100% test out. You have to test it if it's new. New stoves and ranges are an exception, though. They don't have to be tested. Any appliance that failed during test-in, you need to test again. And if there's a systemic failure, which is 50% of units failed, that triggers you to test everything. Likewise, if there are envelope upgrades at the site, then any units affected by those envelope upgrades get tested. So quick review that I think you know. And I'll pause for some questions here.
Just one comment. New stove can fail. I think we agree. Yes, we agree with that. The idea here, the hope here is that with ambient CO testing, we find the ones that are failing drastically, severely poor, severely under underperforming. And also there's a concern that the testing, so the alternative there would be full testing because it is a new appliance, and that we do not think that there is a potential for safety concern that warrants that level of testing. But we want to, I mean, the goal of all of this is to make sure that no tenant ever has, in my opinion, I mean, zero carbon monoxide is the goal of both ambient and in and near the draft piece of equipment, the piece of equipment that's combusting. So that's our goal, and we're trying to get to that goal while considering, budget and schedule as well. So I appreciate your feedback, but this is the way we're going with this policy in order to juggle all of those considerations, while also, I personally think that this is still appropriate in terms of making sure that the tenant and the unit is operated safely. Matt, do you have anything you want to add there?
Just to keep in mind that these are the minimum requirements for the program. And so if you're always welcome to be more thorough than our minimum standards.
Good point. Yep, thanks. That's all the questions, comments for now.
All right. So we'll talk about training opportunities. So the handbook, as we mentioned, will be available very soon. It will be updated. And this is our reference document for the program. For some of you, it may be the bane of your existence, but it's actually pretty handy, and you can find many of your questions can be answered by checking that out. Likewise, we'll have our website available with, this training and other trainings, and we'll have an up-to-date schedule for trainings that are upcoming. And the one I want to talk about is related to this transition to Energy Pro version 7. So we'll be having some trainings in the first part of 2018 focused on a couple areas. One is how do you convert an existing model that's in Energy Pro 5 or in the RES module to the new non-RES module. And then another set of trainings will be on best practices when you're modeling in the non-RES performance. So look out for those. We'll send emails and update the website. You'll hear about it. And next, Mike, I'm going to turn it over to you, and we'll talk about program coordination.
Great. It looks like there's a couple questions. Let's just handle those, and then we can move forward.
Oh, yeah.
Mentioned that PG&E's requirements for CAS are stricter. So do they actually supersede the MUP requirements in some cases?
So when you exceed PG&E's requirements, the trigger there is to get the gas services representative involved in the project. So we aren't making any qualification. We're essentially saying, gas services representative, weigh in and tell us the best course of action. That's what you need to do at that point.
Okay, next. Who should we contact to inform participation of this orientation, also for multiple people in the webinar? Yeah, how do you want to do that, Matt? I think we have a certification that you've attended the webinar that we can send out.
Yeah, yep, indeed. We'll send that out. And
so we're gonna, we'll send that out to all the partners, and then we'll require that you complete that before you can start a project. Are we on the same page there, Matt?
Indeed.
Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and move forward with coordination. Feel free to keep asking questions. as they arise. Okay, there's a new service that we're launching. It's not necessarily related to multifamily upgrade program, but it's sort of connected to. And this is an initiative that was requested by the regulators, by the PUC, after hearing feedback from stakeholders and customers in the multifamily market that, and this is not just specific to multifamily, I think, maybe we all have experienced this in the past, but programs, and especially the various types of programs that are available to customers, is very confusing and convoluted. I'm sure you all deal with this with your customers when they come to you and they ask, should I apply for TCAC or MUP, and not really understanding that those are kind of two collaborative, not necessarily competing initiatives. The same is true for all of the other programs listed here on the screen. So what we are conducting, TRC has taken on this new role, which is called the single point of contact. And this is the way that we see the multifamily market existing today, essentially. So we've run the multifamily upgrade program as one little piece of the entire program opportunity available to customers in the market. The customer might participate in MUP, or they might go through energy savings assistance, or it might be a new construction project, or they might want to go through a local utility program called BayRen. There are a variety of other program opportunities that customers might be eligible for, and our responsibility is to help streamline and organize this process. So if you go to the next slide, Matt, the way we envision this service working is we are offering, TRC is offering, and we've created a hotline. It's a toll-free number. We've also created an intake structure for that hotline, so that we are able to help customers navigate to all of the various resources that they might be eligible for or interested in. This includes, but isn't limited to, financing programs, tax credit programs, rebate programs, free and direct install, widget replacement programs, solar installation programs, EV charging, all of the programs that are available to multifamily customers. We at TRC have taken on the challenge of trying to coordinate and come up with a better process for multifamily customers to interact and engage with those programs. What that means to you or for you is, number one, just that you should know that that's available. And if you have a customer that isn't right for the multifamily upgrade program, and you don't have the time or resources to help that customer find other resources, you can lean on us. We're happy to help, and we are available to help. We have a questionnaire that we will conduct with the customer and help them to determine which of the program opportunities are most relevant, and whether or not they're eligible for those opportunities. The other detail, or the one detail that I really want to focus in on, though, about all of these other program opportunities, of which we're trying to expand the multifamily upgrade program so that there's plenty more opportunity for you, the partners, but also for the customers. And the one that I really want to focus in on is financing. So if you can take me to the, well, this is just one final point on the single point of contact there. You can see the toll-free number. We're also able to accept email intake and fill out an interest form. Similar to how we do an interest form to start the multifamily upgrade process, we're able to help sort of navigate customers or push customers in certain directions. I also just wanted to take a minute and let you know, the partners, that we value this partnership. So if you come to us with a customer, we're not going to recommend that they go hire another firm. before speaking with you about it. So just wanted to caveat that we understand that that's a little bit of a sensitive issue, because we don't want to be working with your customers and routing them to opportunities that are, not working with you. So if you want to use this service, if you want to recommend customers go through this process, keep us informed, and we'll do what we can to make sure that the customers get the information that they need, but also that they work with you and understand that you were the ones that helped get them to that point. But ideally, also, this should generate, hopefully, some new leads for the program, and we'll talk a little bit more in subsequent calls about how that lead generation will work as a process for the partners. Okay, let's go on to focus in on financing. So PG&E is offering on-bill financing, and last year, we're still in 2017. In the middle of 2017, sometime May or June, I think, the program changed its policy to go from $100,000 limit, which it's actually still on the website as $100,000 is the upper limit, but that's not true. The upper limit of the loan is $2 million, and it's 0% financing. So they're offering free financing on loans of up to $2 million. The requirement is that the customer has PG&E service and is in good standing on paying their PG&E bill, and that the customer has a non-residential meter rate. So typically the common area gas or electric meter satisfies that requirement. The details that you need to understand are that the project savings are documented through the same process that we use to document energy savings in the multifamily upgrade program. And the quantity of those savings, the dollar value of those savings, informs the dollar value of the loan. So there's a chance, there's a potential, and we want to work with you and your customers to make this a reality, to have a customer receive 0% on-bill financing loan for potentially up to the full cost of the retrofit project, while also receiving multifamily upgrade program or other relevant program rebates and incentives and service for the project. The term of the loan can be up to 10 years, and the loan value is calculated based on the total energy savings attributable to that non-residential meter. So very high level overview of what's going on with on-bill financing, but I wanted to make sure that you're all aware of that. If you have any questions, please contact us. One of our colleagues, Siobhan McCabe, is the one who is working with the on-bill financing team on coordinating projects and helping to dig into the nitty-gritty details on financing on this particular financing product. One other thing, for those of you that are pretty savvy financing people, this is an unsecured loan. So this, you do not need to worry about or coordinate with other existing financing structures in place that the customer has in place in order to qualify for this loan. I think that's all I wanted to say about on-bill financing for now. If you have questions, please contact us, and we will be happy to get into the weeds further on this. A couple questions have come in since then. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it looks like we do have a couple questions. So one is regarding the single point of contact. Are customers targeted to properties that have 3 or more units and also have at least one common meter for electricity, gas, or water? That's the question.
So let's go back up to that single point of contact, the first one. We have been, throughout this year, moving or recommending customers back to, for example, the home upgrade program and other relevant single-family program opportunities. So what we're able to do is work with customers to sort of get routed to the right place. So you don't have to sort of pre-screen customers and find out whether or not they have 3 or more or 5 or more units. If you've got a customer and they've got questions and they might be a multifamily building, given the somewhat arcane and archaic definitions around what is multifamily. So basically, if you have a customer that has questions about multifamily, if you can go to the little bar slide, Matt, I think it's two beyond this.
This one?
Yeah, I mean, basically, if you have any multifamily building, any multifamily customer, please have them contact us. If they don't have a project that qualifies as multifamily, we will find the right place and person for them to talk to about additional opportunities in, for example, the home upgrade program. Got one other question. Can financing be used towards upgrades that are not tied to meters? Let's just pause. Let's just put a pause on that. That discussion, as of right now, the official rule is that financing can only be used for the savings attributable to the non-residential meter at the building. That does limit the opportunity for on-bill financing for multifamily as only to the common area. We have recommended and advocated for, and there's potential that the rules could change such that all savings could be aggregated and tied back to 1 meter on the site. So for now, I'd like to let you all know that we're ready to, through single point of contact and through our experience with on-bill financing, work with you on setting up a competitive financing project or competitive financing bid or proposal packaging of a project for customers, given the entire scope of work of the project. The reality might not match that goal, but that's our goal. Our goal is to move this on-bill financing program to a place where the savings attributable from the entire scope of work at the property is able to be calculated within the on-bill financing loan terms. The other question sort of within that question is the financing, the money is just money. So you can use that money to pay soft costs, to finance kind of whatever part of the project you want to. And the there's no savings to payment true up once the loan is documented. So PG&E is not going to scrutinize the energy performance of the project and adjust the loan once the loan is set. So you can kind of bank on the loan being provided once the loan is approved, and you can use that loan to kind of however you want to financially. But it needs to be calculated based on real energy savings. So I hope that clarifies. I realize there's a lot of details there, and happy to get into more and more details, but I think it's probably appropriate to do that one-on-one. So if you have questions, please contact us, and we'll work with you on making sure that all your questions are answered. And are there any other questions, Matt? Or with that, I'll hand it back over to you.
That's it.
Thanks.
For now. All right, wrapping up. So just wanted to, reiterate that you can always give us a call for if you have any questions or concerns. And likewise, we have a website where you can find the handbook and things like that. And so you are done with the orientation now. So we'll be sending you a certificate of attendance in the next few days. And so the next steps are, we will let you know once all the new documents are available. You'll be able to sign the partner agreements and I'll highlight our YouTube page that has some, that will have this orientation, but also an assessment training. And I think that's it. So we have just one more opportunity for any last minute questions. All right, and I don't see any, so yeah, give us a ring if you have any questions. And I'm really excited about next year's projects. Tell us about any projects that you have. We're excited to hear about anything coming down the pike and excited to work with you to improve energy efficiency for your customers. Thank you.